here, Chopper Bob Customs. Those of you that are watching my videos, thank you for your support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider subscribing to it. Hit the like button. If you got a comment, got a question, got something that you'd like to see, something that you think that you could see better, let me know in the comments. And hit that notification bell, because I've got a lot of interesting things coming up this year. I've got the plasma table that I've started shooting video on, and going to be getting that up and operating here soon, I hope. Got the chop repair job on a rat rod that I've got going on. And right now what I've got behind me, also going to be hopefully shooting and showing some video of the blown retirement funny car coming up. Behind me right now I've got a blown, in actually two different ways, big block Chevy. It's got twin Edelbrock, I think they're AFBs on it, with a BDS. I'm fairly certain that's an 871 on it. 454 according to the valve covers. Big block Chevy, we know that for certain. And I was going to shoot a video of the smoke coming out of the breather for the opening, but at this point there's probably no point. I went ahead and checked in the radiator. There's some issues there that may have caused the problem maybe, and then when I pulled the dipstick, as you'll see here shortly, I got milkshake. So there's really not a whole lot of point in doing a compression test and or a leak down test, because I know the combustion product is getting out of the combustion chamber, and chances are it's probably a head gasket. And so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be starting a tear down of this engine, and so I'll go ahead and get the battery disconnected and then start taking stuff apart. And so I thought maybe you'd like to follow along as I do it. I'm going to speed it up. There'll be a lot of music. I'll stop from time to time if there's a point of interest that I need to make, and we'll go from there. Hey, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe. Okay, so before we run a compression test or a leak down test, we want to do a quick visual inspection of what's going on here. If we've got a blown head gasket, there's a good chance it'll affect the cooling system. So one of the first things we want to look at is what we got going on in the radiator. Now they make kits that you can check to see if you've got combustion products in the coolant. And I don't have one of those kits, but I think with the testing that we're going to do, we probably don't need to invest in one of them. I think we're going to find out pretty quickly what's going on here. So the first thing I'll notice is that the radiator is probably only about half full. The level's down low. There's not a lot. There's a little bit of surface oil on it, but that could just be from normal utilization. But the fact that it's half empty is kind of bothersome. It does have an overflow. Let me take a look and see what the situation is here. And it is full to the top. So for whatever reason, the radiator has not been sucking the coolant back in. And there's the reason they've got the overflow going into the top of the tank rather than the bottom. So they've installed the overflow tank incorrectly. You can't, sometimes you can't make this stuff up. Okay, so there's not a lot of contamination that I can see. The antifreeze nice and green. There's always the possibility that if you get one of those test kits, you'd find combustion products in the coolant. next step will be to take a look at the dipstick to see what, oh, we've got milkshake. I don't know whether you can see that or not. He has got milkshake. Let's see if it's over full. I think we probably have a pretty good idea it's got a blown head gasket without doing any testing. Oh, it is just a little over full. Not much, but a little over full. It's getting coolant into the crankcase. So I think I'm going to get in touch with him before I do a compression test and a leak down test, because I think we pretty much have an idea what's going on. Anyway, if I come back, I'll be doing a compression test and a leak down test. Otherwise, you'll probably never see this video. Okay, so I just got off the phone with the owner and we discussed it, and we both agreed that there's probably not a whole lot of point in him paying me for a leak down test and a compression test, because the other thing that I was going to do for this video was I was going to start it up and show you the blow-by. I mean, it looks like a steam engine running with smoke coming out of this breather over here. So I think the best case scenario is we got a blown head gasket. Hopefully it's nothing worse than that. So what he's done now is he's authorized me to tear it apart and do a visual inspection of obviously the gasket, the cylinder heads, the block, and see if it warrants putting a set of head gaskets in it, or whether we're just going to pull this this bullet out. He's got a small block Chevy crate motor that I think he probably would like to put in it if this big block blown engine is not viable. So we're going to start tearing her apart. Okay, so I got the batteries disconnected. There's two of them. I'm not sure whether or not they both go to the starter, or whether one has one function and another has another function. But just to be safe, I don't want to do any arc welding with the car. I disconnected the negative cable on both of them. I went to drain the antifreeze out of the radiator. This is a beautiful cross-flow aluminum radiator. It's huge. Should probably be more than sufficient to cool this blown big block Chevrolet. It's a good quality radiator. I can tell because it has a petcock on it, and when they installed it, they didn't relieve the frame so that you can turn the petcock. And the way the petcock is designed, you can't just unscrew it from the radiator, because when you start unscrewing it from the radiator, you'll actually try and tighten the petcock, so it just won't work. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to disconnect the lower radiator hose. I'll probably take an antifreeze bath. And if you're doing this kind of work and you're not paying attention to details, just put down your tools and step away from the vehicle. There's no call for this. You spend all this time and money building one of these things, and then you have to drain the antifreeze out of the radiator this way. So I've got the coolant drained out of it. Going to start taking it apart. spend all this money, BDS blower, 454, all the fancy stuff, and you can't afford to run up to Ace Hardware and get the right fastener. Just nuts. Put down the tools, step away from the car. Okay, I'm not sure whether I videotaped that or not. If I did, that's great. I thought I didn't videotape it because I wasn't sure whether it was going to work or not, and I didn't want to actually have evidence of me destroying the blower on videotape, but got it off of there. So on to the next step. Okay, it's a new day, so it's time to see if we can't get the blower manifold off of here, and then eventually the cylinder heads. So get started. Okay, I've got the plugs pulled out of it. I've got the engine rotated over to top dead center, which I'm fairly certain is on number 1 firing based on where the cap was and the fact that it was running when I did bring it in here. And so I'm going to take a quick photograph of where the rotor's pointing. So I'll have a record of it when it comes time to put it back together. Okay, with the thermostat and thermostat housing removed, I've disconnected the pressure tube that's hooked up to the boost gauge inside the car, and I've disconnected the temperature probe for the temperature gauge. And so now I think I'm to the point where I can remove the bolts and see if I can get the manifold up off of it. And it'll be interesting to see how this works, because the stuff that is supposed to be tight is loose and the stuff that's supposed to be loose is tight. So So I'll cover this up and break for lunch, and when I come back out, unless I've got something else I gotta do, I'll get the heads off today. Okay, so the next step is removing the header and the valve cover, and I think I'm going to start over here on what I believe to be the more difficult side. Okay, so I've removed the rocker arms and the push rods. I've got the header disconnected. Unfortunately, it will not provide enough clearance to get out of the car on this side. Did get the valve cover off without too much problems. So what I'm going to have to try and do is jack the car up when I get to the point where I need to undo the bottom 4 bolts on this head, and see if I can't get down in there with an extension in the socket to get those bottom 4 bolts out. I am taking it off in reverse order of the torque sequence. That relieves the tension on the head in the same relationship that it has as you're torquing it down. Right now I've got to get to these back 2 bolts to see if I can get to them, and we'll go from there. Okay, I've left 2 of them in there just to make sure the head doesn't fall off. I used to be the guy that would lift these heads out of here by myself and lift them up over the fender and carry them over the workbench. Unfortunately, I'm not that guy anymore. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to get this rigged up so I can get it out of here, and then I'll take the remaining 2 out once I have it secured, and I'll lift it out of here. So let's take a break, and I'll be right back. Okay, let's see if this is going to work. How about that? Right at the spots where Chevrolet forgot to put 2 head bolts in. Right there, blown completely through, and right there, blown completely through. And yeah, I'm not 100% certain. That might have blown back there at the water jacket. I'm not exactly sure why we were getting, well, it might have been coming from here from the pressure leaking out. But yeah, so who knows what the other side's going to show, but I'll get this dried up a little bit. It looks like we got some scoring on the cylinder wall. See how it cleans up. But yeah, and I'm betting we're going to find maybe the same thing on the other side. Anywho, let's get her cleaned up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I gave the customer a call and told him about the scoring on the cylinder walls. And he came over and took a look at it, and we discussed the fact that if the scoring had been there prior to the antifreeze getting into the oil, that maybe this was just the natural progression of this engine. Obviously, if you can catch your fingernail on the scoring, it's not good. But I said if it occurred because the antifreeze got into the engine oil, then you could also have a possibility where the bearings look the same way. He said that he was sure that he hadn't run the engine long enough to do the damage once it blew the head gaskets, and he's willing to take the chance on it. So I went ahead and pulled the other head off. Its head gasket had not blown. Obviously on this side it blew on the 2 cylinders, number 3 and number 7. So I've got head gaskets coming. It's going to be probably a little bit before I get the engine reassembled, but in the meantime I do have some things that I need to address. One of the things is the alternator. I don't know whether you can see that spring hanging out of the alternator right here. Apparently the guy that built the car cut the back of the cover. I'm not exactly sure what alternator this is and why he cut the back of the cover, but he did, and the springs pop out, and the owner asked him about it because it wasn't charging, and he says, oh yeah, you just reach in there and push the springs and the brushes back in the holes and it'll start charging again. Listen, when you're out on Paradise Road and your headlights are turning yellow and you need to get moving, you don't want to be out there fumbling around in the dark trying to shove those springs back in. And here again, if you're doing this kind of stuff, just put the tools down and step away from the car. But that's what I'm going to be doing next, is I'm going to go ahead and pull the alternator off of here and see if this can be repaired, or if maybe we can get a smaller alternator. I don't know what I'm going to find when I take it out, and I'm not exactly sure what all's involved in taking it out, because obviously it's got a homemade bracket, and it's got a big bolt through it to the block. I think that's the one that is a 7/16 bolt, and the one up high might be the 3/8. Anyway, I'm going to get the wrenches and start taking it off and see what I got. Okay, so I'm not sure what the vehicle this came out of. I talked to Robin about it, and he thinks it might be out of an LS truck maybe. I've got a bunch of text into the customer to see if he knows where we might get a replacement. The thing is, for whatever reason, I don't really see that there was a need to cut all this out right here, but they've hacked this out right here, and that is part of what holds the brushes in place right here. And then the brush holder is cracked. It's cracked from here back to here, and all the holders for the brushes have popped out, and I don't know whether we can find those parts. What would really be nice would be if I could find a smaller one-wire alternator. A lot of the ones I'm seeing are only 35 amps, and I'm not sure whether that would really be enough. I'm going to have to do some research. The other thing about it is this has got a 4-wire connector right here. Of course, it only has wires running to the middle two, so I'm not exactly sure where they go in the car. I haven't even looked at the wiring. I know that the fans don't work. There is an automatic transmission cooler on the car, and the fan works on it, but right now the car's got a 4-speed in it, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I'm probably going to have to take a look at the wiring and see what we've got going on there. So I got some research I got to do. Okay, I think I'm going to end this video here. I've got to figure out what to do on the alternator. I'm also going to have to trace down the wiring on the fans, because apparently, like I said, they aren't coming on. And then I've got to wait on the parts to get here. And my torque wrenches are in being calibrated and adjusted. So I've got to wait till they come back from the calibration shop. Anyway, so it might be a bit before the next video shows up on this. I don't know whether I'm going to videotape the looking at the wiring. It's going to be kind of tedious. I'm not exactly sure how they wired it. If you want to see that, leave a comment. If you don't want to see it, leave a comment. Please tell me you don't want to see it, because videotaping is doing it's going to be bad enough. Adding the videotape to is probably going to be a real problem. Anyway, again, subscribe, like, comment, set that notification bell, and I've got probably the next video post will probably be about the plasma table, and then I've also got to start working on the rat rod. So I've got a lot going on here, and keep tuned in. And thanks for watching. For now, Chopper Bob out.